So here we are. It's been a long day, and if you follow my Facebook feed, if you follow anything, you know that something happened today that got me really pissed off. And you might ask, why is it that on the day that presumably Obamacare got repealed that you're so pissed off about something? You should probably be happy. I'll tell you what, I have calmed down a little since I saw this ridiculous article that you see before you, that Trumpcare is medical apartheid, which I'm going to get to. But I'm not happy because I don't believe that this is truly a victory yet. First of all, it's only cleared the House. Second of all, anything could happen after this. This could still go by the wayside. And I don't call it a win after the second inning. I still think we're in the second inning. And we're fighting Obamacare. It doesn't matter if you're a fan of my channel. There's not a lot of people like you anyway. But a lot of you I know are out there. You're in these states: Tennessee, Georgia, Missouri, Oklahoma. You're in Arizona. And you've seen the havoc that Obamacare has wreaked on the country. And, people are unwilling to address the real problem. And that is that even if they supported Obamacare, they typically did it without understanding what it would do to the country. And they think that supporting Obamacare means that you're helping the poor Americans. Wrong. It was even designed not for poor Americans. It was designed for people that have pre-existing conditions that are middle-class earners. So we're not talking about the same thing. If you're Medicaid, okay, I'm not blaming any of you Medicaid subscribers. Okay, Medicaid is designed for the lower class or lower income voters, voters. Essentially, they want people to believe that without Obamacare, it would be the same thing as without Medicaid, that all these people would have no medical care, which I think is ridiculous because they don't work the same way. That's why Bernie Sanders, somebody that anybody who's watched any of my material, read my material, knows I have virtually no ideological overlap with him. But he knows that it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. And this bill is not helping anybody that, the old bill, Obamacare. It's not helping anybody from the lower class, the lower income brackets get health care. It's just a falsehood. It's a lie. It's a deception. It's a con. You understand? It's a fraud. Okay, I'm not going to say, how many more synonyms they have to use. And that they're calling this medical apartheid is a disgrace. I mean, it is a Daily Beast paper that was trash talking Obama. They were trash talking Trump during the entire election. This is not about me supporting Donald Trump. I've opposed Obamacare since before this election even became an issue. So therefore, before Donald Trump even became an issue, Donald Trump, for all I care, he can think whatever he wants. He can support this plan all he wants. It doesn't mean that I'm going to support this new plan either, just like I didn't support Obamacare. So, to start off, I'm not happy to the degree that you would think, because I think that we have a long fight to go. To get to the model of a healthcare system where people really are able to go out there and explore the market, find the plan that fits them, find the plan that suits their needs. Okay, the plan that suits their needs. Okay, you don't insure any other product or any other need. If you're talking about healthcare being a human right, does everybody express their rights in the same way? If you have a human right to freedom of expression, that means you have the freedom to do it in numerous different ways. Obamacare doesn't do that. And, I'll be honest with you, single payer does not do that either. Single payer is basically forcing the government to cover the entire thing. The entire thing. Everybody has to pay for every medical procedure. For everybody. Okay, so even if a doctor were to recommend a surgery that was unnecessary, and it was to be, there'd be instantaneously a requirement to cover it. And then All of these issues, people don't really think about what medicine really means. And I'm not here as somebody who's a medical professional. I did take EMT training. That's the highest extent of it. I'm talking about somebody that's trying to understand the problem. Are we trying to write a whole new way of living for this country, or are we trying to get people treated for diseases and illnesses that they have? Because we're really starting to go into this new level of hysteria that's going to turn this debate into a shit show. You know what? It's been a shit show. I was watching the House floor today. I was watching these House representatives get up and trash the GOP for repealing Obamacare. You know what? I think there's plenty to criticize the GOP for. It's just they're not the ones who should be doing it. And I'll read you, as much of this article as I can get through, because it's not really, you're not really going to learn anything from it. And he says, this is Jonathan Alder. He says, Jimmy Kimmel, and I'll research him during this article. I'll go and look him up. Jimmy Kimmel was weeping on his show this week after describing the heroic efforts of doctors to fix the heart defect of his newborn son, Billy. He said that baby Billy would be dealing with this congenital condition when he was a teenager and beyond. Then his thoughts turned to people who are not the children of late-night talk show hosts. He told the audience that important meetings are underway in Washington right now. No parent should have to decide if they can afford to save their child's life, he said to thunderous applause. Before 2010, millions of parents were faced with that decision. As we wait to see if Republicans can ram through their new version of the health care bill and I give them decent odds in the House, please join me on a quick trip back in time on this most wrenching of issues. It will help clarify the breathtaking cynicism of the GOP. I'm talking here less about President Trump, who wouldn't know a community rating from a Nielsen rating if his life depended on it, than about other dishonest public services who should know better, like House Speaker Paul Ryan, Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price, and Representative Tom MacArthur, the New Jersey conservative who fashioned the latest compromise with the far-right Freedom Caucus. Democrats are hardly covering themselves with glory on this one either. Their efforts to defend Obamacare are often arid, abstract, and disconnected from the powerful moral imperative at the heart of the issue. First, the context. Let's return for a moment to the great American double whammy, the way millions of Americans lost their health and their savings at the same time. Before Obamacare, more than half of all personal bankruptcies were caused by onerous healthcare costs. Those who didn't go bankrupt often sold their homes or spent much of their net worth to pay for their care or that of an ailing loved one. It wasn't just cancer or heart disease that prevented people from getting insurance. High blood pressure, kidney stones, even allergies could be enough to deny you coverage. Then, if you got sick, you were thrown to the wolves. Sorry, it sounds like I'm probably dying if you're watching, I mean, that's how I sound at the office. I'm basically coughing my lungs out. By the way, I don't smoke, so if you're going to ask, I don't smoke. Why did Democrats advocate some kind of national health insurance, at least catastrophic coverage? Republicans mostly opposed it, but they had to figure out some way to deal with the middle-class Billy Kimmels of the world. So state policymakers came up with something called high-risk pools, where insurers would all contribute to help cover their outcasts, the ones who didn't want wrecking their profits. They didn't want wrecking their profits because of pre-existing conditions. This sounded like a decent stopgap idea, and in the 1990s and 2000s, it spread to 35 states. Sadly, high-risk pools were a colossal flop. In 20 states, legislators provided no money to help with premiums for those in the pools. That meant few could afford the coverage. Only 226,000 out of 40 million uninsured, less than 1%, took part. In California, for instance, fewer than 1,000 people in the entire state were in the high-risk pools. Now Trump, Ryan, and company are pretending that these proven failures, state-run high-risk pools, are the way to keep their promise to anyone who has ever had a chronic or serious health problem. The president says with a straight face that those with pre-existing conditions, okay, let's skip through all this because there's a lot of it. As Ryan brags, Wisconsinites enroll in the high-risk pool. We're generally glad that they finally got covered after years of being stiffed for pre-existing conditions. Problem solved. Thanks, Paul, but it turns out the HIRSP coverage was inferior and more expensive than what these folks later obtained under Obamacare. Most important, though, the Wisconsin high-risk pool, one of the best in the country, and now the GOP's model for the nation, insured only 22,000 out of roughly 500,000 uninsured people in the Badger State. He keeps going through these high-risk pools, which I think, they are true problems. But then he goes and says here, and discrimination against sick people is as morally wrong as discrimination against people of the color because of the color of their skin. High-risk pools are American Sowetos in a system of medical apartheid. If Democrats can make this about discrimination against millions of Americans, they will crystallize the issue and retake Congress in 2018. The latest betting is that the new version of Trumpcare, which would, like the old bill, throw 24 million Americans off health insurance, will fall short. The old plan was supported by a paltry 17% of the public before it was withdrawn in March, and this one is harsher and more hypocritical. It's especially hard on those aged 40 to 65, many of them Trump voters, who can now be charged premiums 5 times as high as those of younger people instead of the 3-to-1 ratio in the earlier GOP bill. We're told none of this augurs for the passage. So, he goes and says, it's widely assumed that the Senate wouldn't back the House version, but that hardly kills the bill. The momentum created by the House passage might well force the Republican-controlled Senate to produce some kind of legislation. Okay, so I've gone on long enough. This guy is right a little about the high-risk health pools, but look at it this way. Okay, we are done with Obamacare, okay? These high-risk health pools, I also predict, will not solve the problem. And that's why I'm not celebrating this bill. I think it's still a problem. And my solution is to do away entirely with Obamacare and eliminate all the state borders between insurance plans. That insurance can be sold nationwide. You would have a lot of other, I had a number of other ideas. There would be you have to start talking about the other elements that are contributing to the healthcare cost rise. You're talking about the cost of medical devices. You're talking about the cost of malpractice insurance. You're talking about the cost of pharmaceuticals, which are driven up also by regulations. You're talking about a corrupt private industry relationship between physicians and insurance companies. So, there's plenty of blame to spread around between the private sector and the public sector here. And those who say that the public option or Medicaid for all, single payer are the answer, okay? I'll get to you in a different video. Maybe one of you wants to, I'll invite one of you for a debate. We can talk about my problems with that. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about Obamacare. And the problem that he's ignoring, okay? Fuck Trumpcare being apartheid. Apartheid is now, you fucking asshole. Apartheid is now. That's what Obamacare is. Obama created medical apartheid, and it's going to be apartheid next year for America if Obamacare survives. And let me explain why. Okay. Obamacare basically assumed that these plans, if you assumed it would work, it assumed that all these plans on the subsidized exchange would be able to survive. There would be plenty of young people who would subsidize these plans, subsidized meaning they would subscribe to the plan, sorry. So there would be plenty of young people, healthy people that would keep these pools reasonable, because you need the healthy people to be the real capacitor, or the reservoir for revenue in order to pay for the people that are, the high-risk people, the ones who do have the pre-existing conditions, the ones that do require a lot of treatments. It's the way insurance works. And anybody on either side of the aisle, whether you're a free market conservative like myself, or you're a statist, communist, sorry, I'll be civil about it. Whether you're one of those wacko, Fruit Loop, Bernie Sanders people that wants government health care, they want Medicaid for all, but you'll still agree with me on this one. You know that it doesn't work that way. You cannot have this Obamacare model that You're expecting the system to survive without healthy subscribers. Okay, so what happened was a lot of people decided, no, I'm not going to subscribe to this bullshit. I'm done. I'm not going to do it. So they didn't. And they took this fine that was levied because of the individual mandate, the part of the law that required you to buy health insurance, and they just paid the fine. Guess what? Maybe the Treasury, maybe the IRS was able to raise some revenue. You know who didn't raise enough revenue because of it? The insurance plans that were suddenly they were bombarded by exploding claims. The people who were on the rolls were unhealthy people. You know, there were people that were basically driving the insurance market up. It spread to other insurance plans that had nothing to do with Obamacare. That's why, you know, I know people, I'm not going to say who, because you know, I'm just not, but I know people very close to me, I'm saying very, very close to me, that they complain because their Cadillac plan, which they resent the name Cadillac plan, but they say, why is my plan a Cadillac plan? Now I'm paying more. Well, you're paying more because you have an amazing plan compared to this garbage that everybody else has, compared to the garbage that's Obamacare. And this dickhead, this motherfucker, okay, this Obama cocksmoker, okay, I'm going Colbert on him now. This, what's his name, Jonathan Alter, he's forgetting that the premiums exploded and the deductibles exploded. The premiums were low at the beginning because they had the deductibles high. And then eventually they couldn't hold either. So you have high deductibles and high premiums. You have the worst of both worlds. Okay, so who's the apartheid now? Who's getting the short end of the stick now? The people that are on Obamacare are the ones getting fucked. Okay, not the people that are getting, not the people that are going to get it kicked off. Okay, they're already getting kicked off, by the way. So let's talk about that apartheid. Okay, the apartheid, if you've ever heard of something called District 6 in South Africa. District 6 was a neighborhood in Cape Town where they kicked these colored South Africans. Coloreds are mixed race South Africans. They kicked them out of their neighborhood in Cape Town because they wanted to build a white neighborhood there. Guess what? Obamacare, they're kicking people off of their programs because their programs are going away. And I'll show you right now. Okay, and then we'll get back to who this, you know, I'll look up this Jonathan Alter. If there's anything interesting about him, I'll let you know. Let's see at the bottom. He's probably just some asshole blogger for Daily Beast, but look, this is from Wednesday. This is from yesterday.
It is pulling off of the individual market
Here, I'll let her say it.
Both on the Obamacare exchanges and off the exchanges as well. And as in several counties, don't believe that they are the single insurer in any Virginia county. Anthem has that distinction. But Mark Bertolini talked about the fact that they do need to look at what markets they'll participate in. And as many insurers, they're saying they are not going to participate in markets where they will continue to see losses. He said this yesterday on the analyst call.
We've already withdrawn from Iowa. We'll be notifying some other states here shortly, but we only had 4 states remaining, so our presence will be much smaller than it is this year.
And of course, he said that on Closing Bell, this very show yesterday as well. For a lot of insurers, even as they are submitting some initial rate filings, they are withholding their true commitment through the end of the summer. They don't have to commit until September, guys. So even insurers that are putting in rates now could still pull out if the uncertainty continues in Washington.
Okay, so there you have it. This is from CNBC. This is a financial network, okay? But and by the way, Bloomberg, which is also a financial network, lied. They lied last week blatantly. Their editorial page, the Bloomberg View, David Shipley, I have another video up. I'll put a link to it. They lied, bull-faced lied about Obamacare. Sorry about this. Let me put this on mute. They had a bull-faced lie that insurers are not abandoning the market. Look, 2 insurers are abandoning the market. Okay, Aetna is abandoning this week, and next week I prediction Anthem will start to abandon They'll start to abandon Virginia, okay? And by the way, Aetna only has 2 other states where they sell Obamacare plans, Delaware and Nebraska, according to this. Okay, so that's just Aetna now, and that's just Virginia. And you're going to see, mark my words, this exodus is this. I'm calling it an exodus. I think in the last video I called it an exodus too. People are going to ditch Obamacare, just like people stopped eating, fen when it started giving you heart attacks. Yes, most of you won't know that reference, but when I was a kid, they used to serve this. People used to be going nuts for this herbal supplement, fen, and then you would croak, and then nobody bought it. That's how insurers are treating Obamacare. They're just leaving. It says here, Iowa may be without individual health plans if insurer pulls out. Okay, tens of thousands of individual health policy consumers in Iowa could be left with no health insurance options if the last carrier for most of the state stops selling such policies, as it suggested Wednesday. Medica, a Minnesota-based health insurer, released a statement suggesting it was close to following 2 larger carriers in deciding not to sell such policies in Iowa for 2018 because of the instability in the market. Okay, so there is no Obamacare in many of these states. It's not just Iowa, by the way. There's also part of Tennessee has been since early this year virtually guaranteed not to have any Obamacare plans on the market. There's also Georgia. Did I say Georgia already? So there's Georgia, there's Tennessee, and Colorado. All 3 of those states have already lost coverage for many areas, mostly the rural counties. And in Arizona, there's also a dead zone. There's going to be more and more areas like this. And by the way, if it's not a dead zone, most of the country, there's only one plan. What does that bode for health premiums, okay? For health insurance premiums. It means that if there's only one insurer in town, that's the price you get, and you better fucking like it. And that's the way it is. Okay, there's no argument over this. There's no debate. Okay, everybody says we have to improve Obamacare. All these Democrats and their celebrity whores, their celebrity cock-smoking meth addict whores. Okay, like Stephen Colbert, that they won't accept that they're backing a policy that's been a colossal failure. It's possibly the worst crafted domestic policy in my lifetime. Okay. By the way, I'm not putting this Allstate thing here on purpose. I have no clue what it's about, so I'm not trying to send some subliminal message. It just happens to be on the page. So yeah, I was leaving. Virginia's leaving. There's going to be no Obamacare left. So let me break down to you where we go from here. Okay, hold on. Okay, you can read before you. This is Jonathan Alter. He's a columnist for the Daily Beast and an analyst for MSNBC. He worked at Newsweek for 28 years as a senior editor and columnist. His most recent book, The Center Holds, Obama and His Enemies, is now in paperback. Now this guy, let's just look at his headlines. An Un-American America First President. 7 reasons why Hillary lost and Trump won. I took the initiative of just reading through it real quick. 2 of them are sexism and racism, and another one's talk radio. Then it says President Trump's team of terribles. Then it says Hillary is right, Trump threatens World War III. So who the fuck is this guy to talk about medical apartheid? This guy is just an opinion asshole. He doesn't mention anything that has to do with real statistics and what's going on with the market. Okay, now, so we're going to sum up. Ignore the screen. It's already, there's nothing more to show for today. Here's what's going to happen going forward. I do believe that this Senate is going to stonewall the bill for a while. It's not going to pass for a couple weeks at least. In the meantime, you're going to get more news coming out. Okay, this is the beginning of the real death spiral. You're going to see insurers basically ditch Obamacare, and people are going to be kicked off their plans, and you're going to see one of two things. Either the Democrats are going to blame Donald Trump for sabotaging Obamacare, or people are finally going to realize that this thing is garbage. It's already fallen apart. Most people who have already used Obamacare know that it's bullshit. And I'll tell you what. Look, I am not, I said at the beginning of this video, okay, and maybe I haven't gone thermonuclear like I said in my post earlier, but this deserves it, okay? They've really lied to us. They've lied to the American people about Obamacare, every single aspect of it. First of all, there's not as many people insured under it as they claim. A lot of the people who gained insurance because of Obamacare actually gained it from Medicaid and not from Obamacare itself. The exchanges have been a colossal failure. You go to any state where there's been an independent exchange. You talk about Illinois, you talk about Oregon, I think Kentucky, you have Delaware, I believe. All their exchanges have either failed already, either a year ago or more. They've already failed and collapsed, or they're on life support, okay? And the reason is that, these states, they can't continue to raise taxes in such a direct way. The closer you are to your constituents, the less you're able to openly steal money from them, which is what the government does. And that's how it's gone with Obamacare at the state level. And what the national networks are doing, these people in New York, LA, and Chicago, and Washington, D.C., is they're ignoring the real victims of Obamacare. They're ignoring these people in Arizona and in Tennessee and elsewhere, and they're pretending that it's been a success. It's been a complete failure. It's probably the worst failure in the history of American public policy in terms of actually sending something to the consumer. There's plenty of policies we do that fail, that don't really reach the American consumer, but or the American citizen, I should say. Let's say that they're not consumers for the sake of argument right now. That we're only talking about them in the capacity of citizens. They've pitched a product to them in the form of this government subsidized health insurance that's been a failure on every level. The insurance premiums have gone up. The deductibles have gone up. The coverage has gone down. Okay, there's fewer plans available, and in some cases the plans just keep getting worse and worse. And many of these procedures that are required to be covered cannot be covered because they can't be paid for. The plans are simply disappearing. Okay, they're falling apart. And people are withholding trips to the doctor or to the physician for treatment because they can't afford the deductibles. So I'm not going to take this sitting down. I'm not going to. I've already said, if you're with me, you have to answer my question. Are you done being lied to? Are you done being lied to about this nonsense, this bizarre propaganda that Trumpcare is medical apartheid? I don't agree with Trumpcare, but it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. If you're progressive and believe in your Fruit Loop government health care, or you're one of my side, the right-wing capitalists, you know that this is just a complete con. It's a deception. You can't let them get away with it. You can't let them get away with it. You have to start telling all of your friends to ignore this crap. In fact, we should start a movement, a counter movement. This has to be the rock that we're dying on, okay? Because there's nothing else going on today that affects more people than this catastrophic failure known as Obamacare. Anyway, this is Ramon, bold like a leopard, and I think that the next battle has just begun. Have a great night.